gentlelady yields back. Chair recognizes Ms. Mace from South Carolina for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we're here today to talk about government accountability, oversight, transparency. We've heard about cybersecurity issues and fraudulent payments on Medicare, Medicaid, et cetera. And then our friends across the aisle want to start banging Republicans over the head over absolute nonsense and accuse us of wanting to literally take food out of babies' mouths, I think is what I heard earlier today. If I recall, it was under the current administration last year when there was a massive baby formula shortage, literally taking food out of the mouths of babies during that shortage. And if I recall during the baby formula shortage that we even had, under the Biden administration, Border Patrol agents that were literally holding baby formula imports hostage, where I had to call the Border Patrol and get baby formula released from the Border Patrol so that babies could have the formula that they needed. So to hijack this hearing over those issues is utter nonsense. We also heard others across the aisle talking about how Republicans want tax breaks for the wealthy. Well, one of the greatest tax breaks for the wealthy was under the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, where there were $250 billion of tax breaks for the wealthiest 1%. That's $26,000 in SALT tax cuts for millionaires, a almost $13,000 government subsidy for couples who are making $500,000 a year to buy their luxury electric vehicles, taxpayer-funded subsidies for the wealthy for home buying, child care, pre-K, Obamacare, paid leave, and more. So I really don't want to hear about the hypocrisy of the left on this issue at all. The IRA mentions taxes, fees, and penalties 637 times. It was the largest expansion of the federal government in 50 years. There were over 150 new government programs. And today the debate rages on about the debt ceiling, but Americans wouldn't recognize it. Americans are living paycheck to paycheck right now. They can't afford a platinum credit card with no limits, and yet that's what the federal government is doing today. The debate is not about, not raising the debt ceiling. The debate is about how much to raise the debt ceiling by. The debate is not about how soon to balance the budget. The debate is not about that at all. It's not about fixing Washington's out-of-control spending, which, by the way, is bipartisan because under President Trump, he raised the debt by $8 trillion. Under President Biden, over $4 trillion. $12 trillion added to the debt over the last 6 years. And we have to deal with nonsense in this committee when we're trying to talk about ways that we can reduce waste, fraud, and abuse in the American government system. American families who run a business or run their family budgets, they understand something that the Congress does not. They cannot run on a deficit. They have to balance their checkbooks every single week. And I'm not going to give my teenage kids a platinum credit card with no limits whatsoever. And to see this debate politicized rather than having both sides come together on both sides of the aisle to say, what are we going to do to fix the debt and the spending crisis that both sides have created today? And it's absolute crickets from our friends across the aisle on the left. And so now that I have gotten totally off on the other side, because the importance of this hearing is important, I do want to get to you, Mr. Dodaro, on some of this today. You mentioned cybersecurity as being an issue, and I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on this issue. One of the things that we brought up on this committee is the aging workforce in the federal workforce and also the workforce that isn't showing up to work, actually. But in the private sector, they don't have this issue where you have 4 times the number of federal workforce employees in IT that are over the age of 60, that'll be entering retirement soon, versus those that are under the age of 30. I mean, how big of an issue is this going to be in the next couple of years?
I think it's a very important issue and point. In fact, strategic human capital management's on the high-risk list across the federal government. I'm very concerned about the federal workforce. Less than 7% are under 30. At GAO, I might add, it's over 10. But, because I've been focused on this as well. This is a real problem for the federal government. There are 22 areas of the 37 on the high-risk list because of critical skill gaps and shortages. Government-wide in the cybersecurity area, human capital management, acquisition management, and there's individual agency skill gaps in a lot of critical agencies across the government. So this is a real problem that the government has, and I'm concerned about it.
And the last thing I will add, I only have 10 seconds left. I was learning COBOL in the late 90s. I was a programmer during Y2K, and back then in the late 90s, those were legacy systems.
Yes.
And the number of systems that we have on COBOL and the advent of technology, even AI, and accessing our vulnerabilities and keeping data safe and secure is something else that we need to explore. I know your office is on top of it, so we really appreciate the reports you've been putting out and bringing cybersecurity to the forefront of this conversation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back.